Yeah, yeah. Okay, now that's fine. So, alrighty, let's get started now. Who was everyone in my session last time where we covered 10 scripts, tactics, strategy to overcome common fee objections? So was everyone in that session? Can you just confirm? And just with this session too, guys, is we've only got a few of us and it's going to be interactive. So I'm going to need your feedback because we're going to do a time and motion analysis together as well. Can you just let me know who was in the session last time?
Darren, I'd say probably a third of the audience was not, but the other 2/3 were. We had that recorded, and so I'd recommend, guys, if you weren't on that session, let me know. I can send you that link, and I can share that with you so that you can get up to speed with what Darren's talking about.
Now, and just confirm, we've only got 5 people in today. Is that correct, including yourself, Aaron?
Oh, no, we've got a total of 27.
Okay, now that's fine. So I just want to confirm everyone's ability to give me feedback because that's going to be important today. Can you just confirm and say hello?
Hello.
Yep.
Hi.
Excellent. Hello. How are you going?
Hello. Hey, Darren.
Alrighty, that's good.
Hello.
So we're going to actually have a group session together shortly where we're going to go through and we're going to talk about how much time it takes to manage at the average property. And then we're also going to talk about the extra time it takes to be managing difficult property as well, because I want to do a time and motion analysis. But let's just get started first. I do apologize. Dennis was scheduled here today, earlier today. Now, at the moment, it's around about 1:45 a.m. Adelaide time here in Australia. When I spoke to Dennis back yesterday, he was doing pretty badly to a point where he was coughing and spluttering, and he wouldn't be able to do this session in any way with the gusto that he loves to give. But he's certainly an amazing trainer, and the next 3 sessions, Dennis is going to be flying, and you're going to be exposed to some of the best door grow information that you're ever going to experience. So we're looking forward to that. Now, with today, we're going to talk about dealing with difficult owners and avoiding bad business. And very quickly, what we're going to be covering is 3 reasons why people can be money tight, 6 irrefutable criteria of a C-class owner, and we're going to look at how you could possibly be, depending on our analysis, maybe managing around 20 or getting around 25% per hour of what you would be getting with a normal or regular management. I'm going to possibly today show you that you could be losing a lot of money for every hour that you spend managing the wrong type of property. So that analysis will bring that out, of course. Also, we're going to talk about 8 totally wrong property types that must be avoided. And also 9 important criteria you must consider before bringing on a new management. So firstly, I'd just like you to stop doing something. I would like you to stop doing property management. I want you to run from it. I want you to repent from it. I want you to renounce it. I want you to flee. I want you to just run as fast as you can away from all the things about bringing on new business and the type of properties that we bring on. And I want you to start doing profitable, quality property management. There is a big difference. And it's taking me this session today, and the conviction that I have towards only taking on quality business is through my 15 years of frontline of pain. And I'm sure that if you've been in the job long enough and you've done your military service in property management, you would understand what pain is. And you can do property management a wrong way, and you can do property management the right way. And so one of my favorite sayings is that a roof and a front door isn't good enough. Just because it's got a roof and a front door, it doesn't mean that you have to say yes. Just because the owner jingles keys and says, here, I've got a property to rent, come and get them, it doesn't mean that suddenly the answer is yes. You need to have more criteria than that. And we're going to be going through today, right criteria for you to consider before you say yes, because the job is hard enough. Would everyone agree the job is hard enough? Give me some feedback. Would you agree the job is tough enough?
Amen, brother.
Cool. And so moving on, let's not make it harder by making wrong choices. So let's get started. So here is 3 reasons. Now, generally when we're dealing with difficult owners, there are different types, but generally the most common type of owner that can be difficult is what I call the money tight owner. And a good friend of mine is in fact the guy that manages my 2 rental properties here in Adelaide of South Australia. His name's Kevin. And one of the most profound statements that he made is that we are in the accommodation business. And when it comes to that accommodation business, there are certain things that we value as real estate agents, as property managers. We value a good tenant. We value the tenant paying the rent on time. We value owners that value tenants as well. We value owners that want to keep the property in a good state of repair. And so when our values equal that of our owners, we're in a good business relationship. However, when their values differ from our values in property management, that's when we get conflict and that's when we get stress. And one of the biggest clashes of values that we can have is against what I call the money tight mindset. Now, I'm a fee maximizer. One of my key areas of expertise is helping people to increase the fees of their current owners, to actually send out a letter and say, due to XYZ reason, we've had to increase our fees. And we know when we do get resistance, it's always going to be around the money tight mindset owner. So these type of owners are difficult, and they are difficult to manage due to a money mindset. And I find there are 3 things that contribute to the money type mindset. Now, number 1, and we have to say it, and we need to be very, very clear, and we need to find what it is. Culture plays a big part in the way that we think. That the culture, if we grow up under a certain culture, that shapes our thinking, and that thinking is no doubt going to be with us for the remainder of our life. And so culture plays a big part in our thinking towards money. And so there are many, many different cultures on the planet, thousands of cultures, and each culture has money playing a part central to that culture. So for example, in our Western civilization, certainly Australia follows very closely in the footsteps of the USA. The USA, of course, being a capitalistic type economy, Australia is very, very similar. And so let's talk about how important money plays in our culture and certainly in our economy, that if everybody in our countries, our respective countries, just only bought what they needed, not just what they wanted as well, our economies would probably shrink dramatically, maybe even collapse. And that really is an expression of how important money plays in our culture. And in different cultures, money plays a different part as well. So for example, one thing that I was aware of when I was working as a property manager, there was a lot of owners that I had that came from a Greek background. And in their culture, money plays a real important part of their status amongst their people community. And so I had a friend of mine, a Greek friend, that said, Darren, I've got other Greek friends that have said, I own more than you, therefore I am better than you. And they see money as it elevates themselves in their community with the amount of money they have, the more power they have in their community. So therefore, they do spend a lot of money in certain ways. I had they would build big houses on a big highway with big semis driving past back and forth. Why would a person build a big, massive house on a highway with noisy trucks going all night? It was obviously they wanted everyone to see them. So in that particular case there with that culture, money plays a certain part, and there are a number of other cultures that we deal with. So if you've got an owner that is from a culture that plays particular importance on money, that could have a lot to do with their thinking as well. I'm being very, very careful in what I'm saying here. Now, in number 2, another way that a person can be money tight is they could be frugal. I hope you understand that word okay, or money tight. And so at home, if it's cold, the mum and dad might say, well, let's not put on the heater, go and put on a sweater. And so that frugalness, using coupons, shopper coupons, all of those sort of things. And the third type of money type mindset that I've come across, and certainly affects the way that people think towards money and being a very money tight, is, for example, you've got a family where young Johnny wants to be a doctor, or he wants to be a lawyer, and he's got to go through university. And of course, the family might be working middle class, and they've worked very, very hard to fund Johnny through university to being a lawyer or a doctor. And Johnny has to work at the local Subway or the local cafe to get by, and he's eating, next to nothing to fund himself through university. But finally he gets his degree, finally he's a doctor, finally he's a lawyer, and now he's come into money, and he's got plenty of money now, but he still treats money scarce like it always once was. And so sometimes these type of situations can affect the way that our owners are money tight, and it can cause a real problem. So let's talk about the C-class landlord. Now, we've got A-class. They're the owners that absolutely love us. They'll always get repairs done. They're very, very easy to communicate with, and you have loyalty. And there are A-class, probably around about 10% of your clients. Then we've got our B-class. You probably don't have, you don't know where you stand with them, but they're still good. They still want a reasonable rent, and they're okay. And then, of course, you got your C-class landlords, and these sort of landlords, to me, I like to use the expression, they can be like a packet of cigarettes, and they can take years off your life. And these are the type of clients that I'm talking about today. And so there are 6 characteristics of a C-class owner that I'm sure that we'll all agree with. And as we go through these, you're going to have people's names come to mind, I'm sure. So number 1, they tend to be over demanding and unreasonable. You give them a call with some really, really good news, and then they might pee all over your parade and dump on you emotionally and make you feel really, really bad. And they have this type of controlling nature about them. Or number 2, they take up lots of your time. They might send you 5-page detailed emails every day on frivolous little things, with these silly little requests all the time, and really, really take up a lot of your time. Number 3 is they may want above market rents. Whatever the market rent is, well, they just want more, which means the property remains empty, and it's very difficult to find quality tenants, because quality tenants don't want to live in an overpriced property, and you end up possibly attracting what we call the desperates, the people that we don't want to rent to. And the property remains empty, and we're not going to get paid. Also, they tend to just want discounted fees. They're the sort of people that they have a win where they want to take money off you and be able to sleep at night knowing they've won something out of you, and they just seem to thrive on that sort of thing. Number 5 is they just won't spend money on repairs, or very reluctant to do it. Very little to no money into the property and the general upkeep of the property, which means over time it becomes run down, it becomes worn out, it becomes just a tired rental property, which means it's not going to attract the right tenant. And likely, in a lot of cases, another characteristic we generally find is that it's likely a low rent property too. So if you've got a lesser management fee and you've got a low rent property, already you're taking a hit financially. And then if we add on lots and lots of time that they're taking up as well, it can become what I call a real ball and chain. And too many of those types of properties are going to cause you real problems. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, what are the sort of problems can be the end of the road of these type of issues? Well, evictions. And evictions take a lot of time. Now, for us here in Australia, we don't need technically, I know in Florida, for example, you need an attorney. to evict a tenant. Here in Australia, we don't need that. We've got a good process, but even still, the eviction process is completely exhausting, right from the legal paperwork right through to chasing the tenant down, revisiting the property. Is a tenant there, trying to communicate with them, trying to work out what's going on, right through to the legal process. Here we go to tribunal, we evict them, all those sorts of things, having to get vendors into the property to clean it up, going back and forth. All of that work there can be anywhere between 19 to 32 hours of work that we experience here in Australia, plus all of the stress, plus of the trust that's been broken with the owner as well. Because if they've got a bad tenant, they're probably also thinking they've got a bad property manager as well. So evictions are just bad all round, and we want to do everything that we can to avoid evictions. Alrighty, also drugs. We start getting into these type of tenancies, then drugs, may be a problem. Now, I've got a picture of a hydroponic marijuana setup, and yes, it's still, the legal sale of marijuana is still not occurring here in Australia. We still have very much a black market. Of course, hydroponics can cause all sorts of damages, but not as extreme as what methamphetamine laboratories can cause to a rental property, with all the contamination, nastiness that can go with it, and the damage as well. And this picture here on the left-hand side is where they were, concealing drugs in this particular wall of the rental property. Now, also, if it's a low-grade, low-end type property, you may have tenants that can't afford a vehicle, and they've just got a vehicle that's just drivable. And of course, if it breaks down, then it's too expensive to get fixed. They'll just go and buy another beat-up vehicle, and then they collect beat-up vehicles. And then you've got car bodies and all of those sort of issues and complications that come with these type properties. And you get all sorts of social issues as well that can come with these types of properties. Really, it can be, with these type of owners, bad business all around. So, guys, is that, did you find that? Give me some feedback. Tell me about, do we have these type of properties? Am I speaking to the right people today? Can you give me some feedback, please? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, I'll say yes. I've dealt with many of meth homes. I've sold many of those.
And the contamination issues can be very, very expensive. What sort of financial cleanup bills have you seen, Aaron?
Well, just the cleanup itself ranges anywhere from $3,500 to about $8,000, but that's just the cleanup. So now they've already taken out all the carpet and the pad that needs to be replaced, taken out all the blinds, so those need to be replaced because all that comes out, and then you also need to clean the ducting for the HVAC and heat, or replace it, depends upon how bad it was. And so that could be another, say, $5,000. So you're up to 15, 20 grand just right there.
We've seen up to $100,000 cost, not just for the cleanup and the decontamination process and the chemicals. By the way, the chemicals for that were developed by the US Army for their biological chemical warfare to clean down their vehicles and so forth. So that's the actual chemicals they use in the decontamination process. Plus, of course, the property is reduced back to a shell. It's got to be rebuilt again. It's a really nasty situation that we've got to try and avoid. Of course, methamphetamine laboratories, happen in all sorts of properties as well. So we've got to keep that in mind and manage our risk as best as we can. So look, just moving on, I just want to, excuse me, have a bit of a talk about, and this is where I need everyone's feedback, please. So please be ready, because we're going to create a time and motion study on an average rental property, and then we're going to do a property that's owned by a C-class owner, and we're going to do some numbers. And what's really important is I need your help with coming up with these figures, because I want these to be your figures. And so let's talk about a tenancy, a 12-month tenancy where a tenant moves in and then they move out in a year situation. And let's have a look and see in a normal property, okay, an average, what I call a bread and butter type property. It's not a penthouse. and it's not in a low grade type property. It's your average. It could be a family home, or, you know, because we've got people here probably with different types of demographics. But let's talk about how long does it take to actually get a new tenant. So I need your feedback now. We're talking about the leasing process. How long does it take? Now, here in Australia, we don't have lock boxes, so we need to show properties, and it could be, you know, 45 minutes drive time plus 15 minutes showing a person through a property. So just to show one person through, or a couple of people, it might be an hour. It might take 3 to 4 hours of drive time before we have an application to work on. So in that case, it could take 4 hours right up to that point. Give me some feedback, please, guys. So how many hours does it take to of work, possibly to get the property loaded onto the internet with marketing, to then take applications, do all of the communication. If you are showing properties, can you please add in your drive time, and showing people through? Can you start giving me some feedback, please, on how long it takes before you've got an application to work with? Of course, that is not the end of the leasing process. Give me some figures, please.
Hi, Darren. This is Pariba from Sacramento.
Hello, how are you going?
I'm good, thank you. For us in Sacramento is a good market. I think a week to do all that, to get the applicant ready and move them in a week. This is a very good market now.
Okay, so it takes this. Okay, so you got days on market about 7. Can you give me a bit of an idea on how much time it takes for you to go from putting it on the market right through to when you've got an application that we're gonna start to work with? We haven't processed it yet, but how much work in your time, Farah, would it take for you to get to that point? Would it be an hour or 2 hours of work, of communication, or I'm assuming you're using lock boxes?
We don't, no, we do self-showing here too.
Okay, great. All right, let's work with that, because I want to work with that example. So how many times would you show the property, do you think, before you've got a person that you're happy to work with?
3-4 times.
Okay, and what would be the drive time in each situation?
Usually we are about half an hour away. We try not to take anything away, like more than half an hour drive. So
okay, all right. And when you're at the property showing people through, how long would it take to show them through?
15 to 20 minutes sometimes.
All right, let's go with 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've told me it takes about half an hour drive time. You're talking about 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back, or half an hour there, half an hour back? How long?
Half an hour going, half an hour coming back.
All right, so it's an hour trip. All right, so we're looking at an hour 15, and let's just work with 3 trips. Is that okay?
Yes.
So, all right, so let's go times by 1.25. In that case there, we're looking at 3 hours and 0.75. Okay, I'm just going to keep a tally as we go. All right, now once we have the application, and Farah, I might just continue with you unless anyone else wants to jump in, because what's important, I need this to be representative of the group, because our end figures, I want you to see the reality of it. So once you've got an application, how long does it take to process it, to do the phone calls, to do the checks, everything like that, before you've got to a point where you then can call the owner and get it approved? How much time?
About 3 hours at most.
Okay. All right. Now, I don't know if that's the case with everybody else, so I'm going to have to go with that. So at the moment, we stand at nearly 7 hours worth of work. Okay. So once we've now got an application that we've worked with, you're pulling the property off the market, and we're now getting the property ready for tenancy. What sort of work is now involved with getting the property ready? So here in Australia, we'd have to get the property entered into our property management software. We would need to get our welcome pack ready. We would need to get our move-in inspection done. We've got a very detailed move-in inspection. We've got to get all that ready as well. Have to go back to the property, take marketing or take property photos, and get a full record of the property before we sign the tenant up. Can you tell me about your process, Farah?
We do inspection before the tenants goes in to make sure everything is good with the property, and then uploading that, it's just like for the VA, they're doing it. I don't think it's going to take them a very long time to put that on the market, because we use Appfolio. But when the tenants are in, it's going to take us, usually I spend an hour with the tenant to walk through, and it's very detailed with the picture. We give them a key, and that's about it.
Okay, so what, about an hour's worth of work?
Yeah, an hour.
Okay, all right. And how long would it take for you to sign them up, to induct them, to explain everything before you hand them the keys and say, see you later?
I think we are using AppFolio lease, so everything is online. So that saves us tons of time.
Okay.
So we maybe on the call, half an hour with the tenant, not really long time.
Okay. All right. Now that's fine. So let's just go with that. And that's about the leasing process over for you now?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Be 7. Let's have a look. 7, 8. Let's say 8 hours all up. Is that all right?
Yes.
So you can actually see that the leasing process is the most detailed process that we generally deal with. Now, how many inspections would you do a year?
I do 2 drive-by, 1 routine inspection, like we go in.
Okay. All right. So it's about half an hour there, half an hour back, correct?
Yeah, about 2. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you drive-bys with all the other properties you're doing at the same time? Most
of them, yes.
All right, now that's fine. So let's just say that's going to take us around about, how much time do you think you would spend on a routine inspection with the drive time, booking time, drive time, do the inspection, do the work that's generated because you simply showed up at the property, and then getting the report ready and sent to the owner? How much time do you think that would take?
If we're going to go in there, I think a whole thing going to be about an hour and a half.
Okay, 1.5 hours. And what about for drive time? Do you want to allocate any time for that, or is that just to simply stop and look and drive off?
Well, we do drive-by, and we do a bunch of them. We go zip code, so it's usually in one drive-by we can do 3, 4, 5 of them. Take a picture if there is everything okay. But the routine inspection that we go inside with the picture, that's the one it takes actually 1.5 hours.
Okay,
but
all right. So
maybe add another half hour, so 2 hours.
Okay, that's good. That's fine. Okay, now with repairs and maintenance, in a typical year, what would the average time fixing things in the average property per year in hours? Now, generally here in Australia, we're looking at about 2 to 3 hours on average per property. What would be your experience?
I think that's accurate.
Yep.
This is for a whole year, right?
For a whole year, the average property with repairs and maintenance.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Let's say 3 hours?
3 hours, yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm not going to do anything about late rent. We're just going to assume our tenants are behaving themselves. Okay. So we're going to leave late rent alone, and we're not going to spend any time on that. Now, lease renewal, to renew the lease, do you spend any time on lease renewal?
Talking to tenant and owner, yes, you can put an hour and a half in between owner and tenant to make sure both want to sign the lease back. So.
All right, I'm going to put, that's about right. We take about an hour. So, all right, now the tenant's leaving. Okay, so let's now work through this situation together. All right, so with the vacate procedure, tenants given notice, they're leaving. We've now got to put something in writing to the tenant, put in something in the writing to the owner. I'm not, of course, pretending to know your exact process, but bear with me. This is very generic. We've got to get the property loaded onto the internet as well. So we've got marketing. We've got to get things ready. So all up, before we've left the office to go and check it, how much work already so far do you think?
That it's going to take, I think that's going to be another, put 6 hours in there.
Okay. Already, before we have even done the move out inspection?
If with the move out inspection and all that to get the tenant out completely.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Can I have some feedback from someone else as well, please? I want this to be a good representation of the group. You may be sitting there thinking, listening to Farah here and thinking, hang on, our procedure's different. I would like your feedback. Can someone else please jump in and help me with this? You can see where we're going with this and how we're flowing. Yeah. So give some feedback, please, would be great.
Darren, this is Jonathan in Austin. I think these estimates are fairly low. Specifically, like leasing, for example, that could easily be double or triple that much, just depending on how long a vacant property is on market.
Okay.
But I would say these are pretty low in general.
Okay, all right. So which ones do I need to tweak so far? Which ones? I want to be reasonable and conservative because my end figures will prove a point. And I want you to see, wow, you know, this is just conservative estimates. So is there any other figures that we need to tweak so far?
I mean, I would say leasing and repair maintenance time can certainly be elevated beyond 3 hours. Is that for an entire year?
That's an entire year on the average property. So,
Yeah,
you know, some will be 6, some will be 8 hours, some will be nothing. What do you think on average?
I would say repairs, you could certainly go with 6.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Totally.
All right. It needs to be a representation of the group. And I appreciate, because, you know, we've got different portfolios. We've got different states. We've got different issues. You know, Florida issues are different from Vegas. So, you know, we've just got to be, you know, mindful of that. So I'm going to put 6 hours here. Is that all right?
Great.
Okay. Are we happy with the routine inspection 2 hours?
No, not for me.
Okay.
So the inspection takes 2 hours, but then going back, putting together work orders, getting approvals from owners, so on and so forth, is at least another 2 hours. At least, probably maybe 3 hours.
All right. Okay. I'm just going to put 3 hours on this. All right. And the leasing process, can we keep this at 8, or do we need to pump that up more? Say 10?
Yeah, I would say that's fine. 10's probably fine.
Yeah, 10's about normal here. So we'll work with that. Okay, let's keep on going. Now, with the vacate procedure here, Farah's given me around about 6 hours worth of work. It is very much tailgating or following the amount of time it takes for leasing. It's the second most detailed process, and of course can be the most stressing process as well. Give some feedback, please, on the vacate procedure. This is where we're moving the tenant out, dealing with the owner, dealing with the tenant, doing the move out, drive time as well, and then any issues, conflict that we're dealing with around, you know, vendors going and doing work, right through to the release of the security deposit. Give me some times, please. Jonathan, any feedback on that one?
There's so many steps here, Darren. It's hard to know how to
just give me an average. Just give me an average, just so we can just move on to the next slide.
Yeah, I would say probably maybe another 8 hours, something like that. I mean, it's with make-ready inspections, going back in, doing quality control. It can really add up. All
right, so 8 hours is cool?
Yep.
All right, and I think that's about right. So let's just move on so far. So right now we've got, so that's 19, we've got 20.5, we've got 28.5 hours. Would that be right? Is my math okay? If you're a good property manager, you're bad at math. So I can't believe I need a calculator for this, but there you go. All right, 28.5 hours all up. So is everyone okay with that so far to move on?
Yeah.
That's a little bit more than what we have here in Australia. We generally have about 20 hours at this point. So just some feedback there. All right. Now, keeping in mind 28.5 hours, let's move on. Now, Jonathan, if you can help me, please. Now going to move on to a C-class owner's property. So we've already logged in 28.5 hours. So we've already said the leasing process is 10 hours. How much extra for that low-grade type property that we're talking about do you think we could be spending on the leasing process? Keeping in mind we've already spent 10 hours, how much extra now are we talking? Extra time.
Yeah, maybe another 5 hours. I mean, it's hard to say, right?
Yeah, it is hard to say. Can anyone else give me some feedback on that? Were you happy with 5 hours?
I would do a little more for me, maybe 8, even up to 10. And
okay.
For me, the reason is because these C properties are priced lower. You have all of the people looking for lower priced properties calling. I mean, my phones blow up. So it just takes a lot of time to filter through them, and
Yep. Okay. No, that's fine. And also, can I just get you, Jonathan and Aaron, can you just be writing down for me what would be the average? Don't give me the figure yet, because I'm going to ask for it shortly. Give me the total average fee income the average broker would be getting per property. Do they get total all fees, all fee income? Is it $1,500 a year? $2,000 a year, $3,000 a year per door on average total fee income. Okay, so just if you want to just give me some figures when I ask for them, that would be good. Okay, now, so at the moment we've just said an extra 8 hours we've done here. Now with routine inspections, can Can you give me some extra time? Now, in this case here, we might have to go back if things aren't up to scratch. Jonathan, can you give me some help with that one? How much extra time will we be spending on routine inspections with this type of property?
Possibly another 1 hour. It's not a great deal more.
Not a big one. Not a big one. That's cool. That's good. Let's work with that one. Okay, now repairs and maintenance or issues surrounding repairs and maintenance. It could be conflict because the owner's not doing repairs and maintenance. Time spent on the repairs and maintenance process on average for this type of property over and above the 6 hours that we've already spent. Give me some feedback.
Yeah, this one's significant because owners are generally pushing back, right, against approving repairs, and then tenants are angry. So there's a lot more time spent.
All sorts of complications and stress.
Yeah, deferred maintenance. So I would say it easily could double from what you had previously.
Another 6?
I was going to say 15 total.
Okay. All right. Let's just stick with 6. I want this to be conservative because the end numbers can be quite shocking. So let's move on now. Late rent. How often are these people behind in their rent, these type of tenants on average? Once a month? Is this a monthly thing we've got to do? Give me some feedback.
I would say 3 times a year.
3 times a year. Someone else?
Agree.
3 times a year, we're going to work on that. Okay, so each time, how much time are you spending talking to the tenant, serving forms, dealing with issues? Is it a legal process you've got to go through? I was with a guy in Vegas a couple of weeks ago. It's quite a lengthy process. Once it hits 5 days behind, the legal process starts with all this paperwork and hoo-ha. Can you give me an idea, please, on average, if it's 3, how much time does it take per time to get the tenant back on track with their rent? Some feedback, please.
Can I throw out just one other issue I think that adds into this is whether or not they're paying by check or by ACH or by credit card is also a time suck.
Yeah, I agree. But would it be pertinent or typical of this type of property, Curtis?
I would say it's probably typical of this type of property that they're going to be paying by cash or check.
Okay, so each time we have to chase a tenant that's behind in the rent, how much time are we talking on average, Curtis? How much time are we talking, Jonathan?
It's probably, I don't know, an hour, maybe an hour and a half per
time?
property. Yep.
Okay, and Curtis, your feedback on that one?
Yeah, I would say that's probably correct.
All right, so we're going to go with 4.5 hours just for the sake of moving on, okay? All right, now, lease renewal process, I don't think that's going to be anything different than what it was before. Would we agree?
Yeah, that's fair.
Is that all right? Yep, there's nothing really there. Okay, now, extra complications in the vacate process. So do we have extra complications with these type of tenants or tenancy compared to the other one? The other one, just to give you a bit of an idea, we spent 8 hours in total on the vacate procedure. How much extra now in complications and issues are we dealing with this type of property? Feedback, please. Jonathan?
Let's say another 4 hours probably. They're generally left in much worse condition.
Yep. And everyone else happy with that 4 hours as an approximation? Yep. All right. Well, we're going to go with that. Okay. So let's just add up that extra time. So in this case here, we've got 14, 15, we've got 20, we've got 19. Is that 23.5? Let me just check that. So we've got 8 plus 7 plus 4 plus 4.5. So 23.5 hours all up. And all up with what we had before plus 28.5, we're now sitting on 52 hours. Okay, so these numbers are very, very important to keep in mind. I'm just going to make some notes as we go. So we've got 28.5 hours, we got 23.5 hours, and then we got 52 hours. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Now, all right, so Aaron or Jonathan, have you got some feedback on how much in a normal property on fee income total would we expect in a property on average? Is it $2,000? Is it $3,000 per year per door? Can you give me some feedback, please?
Aaron, do you have some numbers for the franchise level?
Otherwise, we're going to do a stab in the dark.
Sorry, I was unmuted there. What was the question again,
So what
Darren?
would be the average fee income the average broker would be doing per door, per year, total fee income? What would their total income be per door? Is it $1,500, $2,000 a year, $3,000 a year per door? What would be the average fee income, do you think?
I would say it's 2,200.
Okay, good. Like, nice figure. Well done. Okay, so that's 2,200.
And that's kind of, it takes the average per month for what we do. I did it just a little lower, about a $1.85, $1.80 a month, and then just times that by 12.
All right, so, okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go 2,200 divided by 28.5. In this case here, we are earning $77 approximate per hour. Is everyone with me so far? Get some basic math. Okay, now what we've said here also with the C-class owner. Now this give you a bit of an idea how much in fees. Now on average, what we see is about a third less. So if you're doing 2,200, we times that point.
So Darren, with this, normally if you're with a bad property, not so much a bad landlord, that 2,200 a month is probably going to be more like 1,700 because that property is going to be a lot lower rents.
Yep.
But there's other ways to bring that up. Usually there's maintenance and other issues that drive more time, late fees that help drive that number back up. So that could be less, but let's just keep with the 2,200.
All right. Can we, so you're actually saying that you're probably going to earn the same amount of money in a C-class owner?
I think it's going to be a little bit less.
Okay. So 1,700?
No, Jonathan, what do you think on that? Should we put it at $2,000?
Yeah, that's fine. $2,000's probably fine.
Okay.
All righty. So in this case here, $2,000 divided by 52 hours. Can you hear the ouch already? Who's going ouch? You see where we're going with this?
Yeah.
All right. All righty. Now, $38. Now in Australia, that's about $25. So, feedback, people. Firstly, NAPM did a national survey, and it's no different from Australia. The average broker profit margin is about 20%. So if you're doing $77 an hour, so we times that by 80%, that's $61.60, all righty? In this case, we take off $38 on average. For every hour that you spend on this owner, you are losing $23.60. You are giving them $23.60 for every hour that you give this C-class owner. If you cut them, you would be making money. If you keep them, you are losing money. You are bleeding money of around about $23.60 an hour. All right, but with $38 per hour, because we're going to move on, guys. How much does your cleaner? I need feedback. Curtis, Farah, Jonathan, how much does a cleaner charge per hour to go and clean a property? 30 bucks?
Probably 50.
50? Okay. You're getting less than the cleaner. So how does that make us feel? So is everyone getting my point? Has everyone got the point driven home? Just give me some feedback, please, because we're going to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where I'm going when I say you must stop doing property management because it's killing us. The job's hard enough. Let's not make it harder. Again, I say that these people are like a packet of cigarettes and they can take years off our life. So, alrighty, I'm just going to move up to a full, actually, no, I can't do that, but that's all right. So let's move on. So what I'm saying is that let's have now more criteria than just having a roof and a front door. Before we say yes, let's have a lot more than that. So what I want to do here is, because my animations aren't working very well, let's just say that we've got a clean bucket of drinking water. Beautiful, sweet, clean water. But then let's go and take that clean bucket of water and let's throw in a handful of dirt. And let's throw in some toxic waste. Let's throw in some household cleaning chemicals as well. And, you know, let's throw in some stormwater, dirty water as well. And we can agree that that water, that bucket of clean drinking water is really now not very drinkable. And then we give it, if we gave that to our staff to drink, that bucket of dirty, filthy water, what's going to happen to our staff? Well, they're going to get sick. And this is what happens when we take on these C-class owners. They make our staff sick. And so what happens generally when a property manager resigns, they've had enough, they're leaving the industry, they don't want to come back anymore, what we call burned out. Generally, it's these type of owners that have had a big say and a big play in their final decision. And once they're at that final decision, they won't be coming back. I don't know how much it costs you to replace staff. I don't know whether you use a recruitment agency. Recruitment agencies here could be $10,000, $15,000 per staff member to find someone. And even then, you may not get a good quality property manager because they don't grow on trees. So I'm hoping I'm getting my point here again, putting through that we've got to be very careful about what type of properties that we bring on into the portfolio. Okay, so there are... these are the property types to avoid. So let's not take on anything with a roof and a front door. More criteria is required. And so taking on low rent property, let's be careful with that, all right? Because that can bring all sorts of problems. The more lower we go, sometimes it can give us more and more issues and more workload. Also, low fee type properties. We're going to be very careful that certainly owners that want to bring down, or if they're asking us to discount, we've got to be very careful with that throwing our money away simply for taking on new business. We just got to think, do we want to be busy or do we want to be profitable? Also, low grade properties, owners that aren't fixing it up. We might have a quality street, a quality area, but the property is not in good condition because it hasn't been maintained. We want to be very careful about not taking on those types of properties as well. Now, long distance. Long distance properties, Farah, you said that you take 30 minutes or so. That can be a real issue. We're going to look at some, we can look at some pictures shortly around that. Also, C-class owners, avoiding them. Default owners. Now, default owners, Chapman, I might just get you to put your mute on. Thank you. With default owners, these are people that the boss rings up and says, look, you've had a job transfer, you need to move away, and they're moving away, and they are owners by default. They're not property investors. They now have to rent out their family home. That can be sometimes a problem as well that we need to look out for. The property, a wrong type of property. So here, actually, I'll show you some pictures coming up. Also, we're going to talk about furnished or partly furnished type properties. Can be an issue depending on our property management type as well, or demographics that we work with. Also, eviction property, where an owner comes along and says, here is my tenant. He's 5 months behind in the rent. Here you go. You fix that. And also leasing onlys. Now, I don't know about you, taking on a leasing only where the owner just wants you to find them a tenant. You know, sometimes they can be problematic as well. That comes down to your demographics there. Is there any feedback on this information so far? Mark, I might just get you to mute your mic. Thank you very much. All right, now in South Australia, we have these type of properties, and they're ex-government type properties where the government built them, and we had a lot of, you know, I want to be very, very careful in what I say, but the type of tenant that wants to live in these isn't sometimes the type of tenant that's going to get the rent paid and look after the property as well. So I learned in time for me to avoid this type of property. Your type of property may be different. Now, this particular property here was my very, very first appointment I ever had with a tenant on my very first day on the job in 1989. And there's like 120 what I call units or flats in one block, and there was 4 of these blocks, and property managers were known to be stabbed. And I even heard of a property manager being raped at this property as well. Not the type of tenancy that I'd want to take on now. And this property here is a holiday property that remains vacant or empty for around about 5 months of the year next to a lake. So we're really not getting any income for 5 months of the year. And this is what we call pickers quarters. So this is where properties are built next to a fruit block. In this case, it was grapes, wine grapes. And this was a pickers quarters, which is very low rent. So we're getting low income, lots of drive time to get out to them. These are my mistakes that I've made. And this property here is just a low grade property. The owner spent a lot of our time, wasted a lot of our time not doing the repairs, lots of conflict. And of course, we blew our money out of the water as well. Now, one thing I just want to say, moving on, let's just say that we've got a stressed staff member and we say, look, we want you for 2 hours every day, Mr. Staff Member, can you go and get your office chair, take the office chair out to the parking lot and sit there for 2 hours every day? So who thinks that would be a good idea? Who thinks that staff member would be very refreshed? We're only going to give them their cell phone that they can take with them. They can make and take some calls, but we're going to ask them to just relax, de-stress, sit in the chair in a parking lot for 2 hours every day, looking at the birds, relaxing. Who thinks that's a good idea?
That may be a good idea, Darren. I'd take you up on that, but after probably a week, it'd be a little boring. But that'd be nice and refreshing,
okay.
Relaxing. As long as it's a good day. It's not snowing and it's not raining.
Correct. Let's just say it's lovely weather. Let's just say it's lovely weather. Okay, so you're saying the staff member or the property manager, let's make this clear, it's a property manager, they're just going to get bored. Is anyone else perhaps seeing there might be some other problems with this?
Yeah, I think it would drive ours crazy. They would be, itching.
They're de-stressing though. What's the problem?
It's just all the work they have to get done, that's inside. 2 hours is a long time to eat up for them. Okay. So we all agree. Can we all agree? Let's get feedback that putting a property manager on a chair for 2 hours every day, not being able to do their work except make and take a few calls, is that going to be very derogatory towards property management? Can we all agree that? Because I've been in offices where the property manager is spending 2 to 3 hours a day on a chair in a car, driving around, all right? Because they're taking properties too long distance. Alrighty, so we've got to be very careful. I'm hoping everyone's getting the point that I'm making. We've got to be very careful with the type of properties we take on and the distances that where our staff are driving. And it's a creep. We take 1 or 2 or 3, it might be okay. But after 20 and 30 and 40, suddenly the property manager is against the wall. They're saying, I can't keep up with the workload. And we really can't work out where the problem is. It could be all the drive time and the amount of time they're spending in a car. If your business is set up that way, we might have full-time property inspectors on the road, all of that sort of thing. I'm talking about a more traditional model here. Okay, moving on. Now, also, furniture. For me, in traditional property management, where we're dealing with your single family type homes, that type of thing, we felt that furniture was the F word, all right? And it wasn't a good one. And we only found that any properties that had some type of furniture in them was just a liability and an issue. I think a dishwasher was okay for us, but anything more than that, all our tenants had their own furniture. So unless you're in student accommodation, you're in holiday accommodation, or you're doing Airbnb or something like that, we've got to be very careful that if you're in traditional residential property management, got to be very careful about taking on furniture, because we're opening all sorts of issues and a Pandora's box with that as well. So hoping you guys are in agreement with me. I've qualified myself because you might be in that type of short-term accommodation where furniture is necessary. But if it's unnecessary, just be very, very careful about taking it on. Alrighty, now, let's talk about a situation. Now, this was a default owner. He was one that moved away from his family home, and it was in a place called Alice Springs. If you can just think Phoenix weather, if you can think Vegas weather, very hot,
in a lot of the months of the year. This is our version is Alice Springs, right in the center of Australia. I was managing an office there with property managers, and the property manager called me one day and said, Darren, the owner, he's moved back in. He's been out of the family home for 2 years. He's moved back in and he's declared war on us. And we've just got a lawyer's letter. The move-out inspection has been done. He's moved in claiming the property not fit for human habitation. So this is the lawyer's letter that we got. And then I'm going to show you the photos that we got to substantiate or support the lawyer's claim. So, dear sir, our clients have consulted us as a consequence of difficulty they are experiencing in recovering their property in a condition, I should say, not suitable to occupy. It is clear our clients have a good claim for damages. Please note in this regard that our clients' damages may well exceed the sum our clients anticipate will be involved in making good the property, as they have been to a great deal of expense and inconvenience due in particular to the property not fit for human habitation. Photos proving our claim are attached. So let's have a look at these photos. So these are not the ones that we took. These are the ones that the owner took with the lawyer, sending them to us to prove their claims that the property is in no way fit for human habitation. Photo 1. So I'm thinking this photo was taken about, I don't know, 7 inches away from the wall, and that was what the camera picked up. I'm not sure about this one. This is a picture of the concrete out the back of a property. You can see the ant nest there. I don't know what their issue is with that, whether it's that stain there, I don't know. Here, I think this is really hard. This is an oven door. The oven pulled down, and we're looking down on the actual door as it's open. You can see we got some possible scratches there. This is what we call a doorstop repair. As you can clearly see, the property is not fit for human habitation. This is a gas heater. Looking down on the wall, looking down of the gas heater. The gas heater is pulled away from the wall slightly, and I think you can see right down here is a dead cricket. Alrighty. Who can see the property is completely trashed? Any feedback so far? Who can relate to some of what they've experienced before as well with these type of situations? Anyone so far?
Yes, Darren, lots of property, but I think it's nice they go to the lawyer, but as a property manager, I'm being very straightforward with this C type of owner. I take a picture, I send them a nice email saying that please correct this before I go in. This is rehab, not rent ready. So this is my wording to you, and I will be able to help you. 10% we charge on invoice to get it ready for you. So let's move on. And then either I'll get good feedback or I get lost. Either or.
Well, this owner is one of those really, really difficult ones. But anyways, let's move on. Now, this is what we call an oven or a stove. I'm really not sure of the exact wording you guys use, but this is the side of the oven pulled out from the bench top. All right, so we got an oven in the bench. This is pulled out. I don't know how many tenants actually pull the whole oven out away from the wall and clean the sides. So that's what the owner did there.
Nobody ever does that.
Russian people do it. I've got Russian tenants. They are fantastic. They do that.
Maybe they can clean the back of the oven as well, Of course, the outlet, repair. This is the bath. Now, whether we call that tenant damage or we call that fair wear and tear, it's up for discussion, but that was in the photos. This is the soap suds left in the bottom of what we call the laundry trough. This is the state of all of the trash that was spread over the quarter-acre block where they picked up and put into one photo. This is the dirt patch on the lawn, and I'm thinking, well, it's Alice Springs. It's like 115-degree weather. The grass is green. It's a good thing. And this is the trash left in the bottom of what we call the wheelie bin. I forget what you guys call it, but the trash can bin with the wheels on it that the truck picks up. This was the trash in the bottom. In this case here, we ignored the landlord's letter. and the owner had to take the matter himself to court, and lost. But it was very stressing for everybody involved. A lot of time, a lot of stress, a lot of anguish. And in this case here, what are the telltale signs? Well, it was an owner moving out of his owner-occupied property. He's never intending it for it to be a rental property. It was very pedantic. He perhaps had very unreasonable expectations surrounding fair wear and tear and other people living in his property. Sometimes with these type of owners, we have to look and think, okay, are they ready to be an owner? Are we going to help them to be an owner, or should we not help them? In fact, should we be encouraging them simply to keep the property empty and locking it up, and maybe they get a gardener in every few months or so to look after it? Because we've got to be very careful with the type of owners we take on in these type of situations. Let's have our radar on and try and avoid having World War III come our way in advance. So I'm hoping that today you've been able to relate to this information, certainly regarding this type of owner. So let's talk about now, let's have a criteria in place. And this is a 9-part criteria. Usually it's 10, but because one of these criteria is a little bit controversial and can be legally challenged in the United States. So I've left that one out. But number one, rent level. What's the minimum rent before we say no? Is it $1,100? Is it $1,300? So guys, take a note. What's the average rent per property or per door across your portfolio on your Appfolio system or whatever system you're using? Is it $1,100? Is it $1,300? Is it $1,500? Well, perhaps that now becomes the average, and you don't take on any new properties that is less than that in rent already as an idea. Also, full fees. Making sure you get full fees. If you are going to provide some type of discount, what is that discount? What is your guidelines around that? What we really should be looking at is this property, for example, going to bring me $2,200 a year? All right, let's look at fee income. Let's not worry about, I'm going to get X percent. I'm going to get, I've got this X rent. But what about, I need to have a minimum of, for example, $2,200 a year or $2,500 a year or something like that. And let's look at total income coming in. Also, avoiding poor quality and low standard properties as well. So let's avoid those properties that the owner hasn't actually fixed up. Also, avoiding wrong type property types, like I showed you with that ex-government housing type property that's only going to get me a certain type of tenant. It could be a flat or what we call units or something like that, that low end, but it might not make the rent anyway. So it doesn't fulfill other criteria. Also, C-class owners, we should be usually, not all the time, able to recognize these people up ahead. Why should we be helping these people when they could, in the end, be costing us, how much per hour was that? I think we come up with what? $38 or something like that you're giving them, or $23 that you're giving them for every hour that you're spending on their property. So you're actually losing money by taking on a C-class owner in this case. Furnished. Do you need furniture? You might be dealing with students or holiday or Airbnb, but if it's traditional residential property management, you may not be needing furniture. Evictions. Now, for me, this is my opinion, but if I had an owner that came in and a tenant, self-managed owner, and the tenant's 4, 5, 6 months behind in the rent, for me, it was a lot of work with very little return, lots of stress to get the situation fixed. For me, I preferred to not get involved in those situations. You make the choice on that. And a leasing only, not a full management. For me, I learned over time, I'm just helping a self-managed owner that I'm never going to get business with anyway, but it might be different for you. Alrighty. So that was just the criteria that I had. You may have, the same criteria, maybe drop 1 or 2 points. So that was just my criteria that I like to have. So I might be, not getting involved with 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 15 rental properties that come my way. All right, moving on. So what can we do in these situations? So in new business, you might avoid them. If it's a C-class owner, you might send them a letter letting them know that unfortunately we're very busy at the moment. We're not able to take on your property. All the best. With current business, you might find increasing that owner's fees may be the solution. Or the solution might be to give back management. You've just got to do your numbers and work out, are you actually going to be making money by getting rid of that particular management as well? You might also give them options. And what I mean by that, you might have a really controlling, a real bullying owner, and just having a conversation with them along the lines of, look, Mr. Smith, it's been 2 years now. I feel in this time I have not been able to manage your property at the level and standard that you need. I recommend that you look at your options. In other words, you might need to go and find yourself another agency. And in those situations, you might find the owner may pull his head in, may now suddenly behave, realizing they don't have the control, you have the control, and they go from a C class to a B class owner. Alrighty? So that could be an option for you. Also recognizing bad business right from the start. It could be a DIY owner. I know you guys have got a lot of those, a default owner. Or it could be a furnished property, but just looking at the warning signs, thinking that is trouble coming. I need to avoid it if that's trouble for you. But what I want you to do, going right back to where we started today, alrighty, I want you to stop valuing, my PowerPoint's not working, but I want you to stop, all right? I want you to stop doing property management, okay? I want you to stop doing it. I want you to run from it, renounce it, and I want you to start doing profitable, quality property management, because we are worth it, our staff are worth it, and we can enjoy our job so much better for it. So guys, that's my presentation. Any feedback, any questions?
Any questions for Darren?
No, thank you. It just made a lot of sense.
That was awesome, Darren.
Hopefully it gives us a bit of an epiphany, you know, that come on, guys, the job's hard enough. And, you know, we just got to, you know, there is such thing as a really quality, you know, crisp portfolio. Working with a client of mine in New Mexico, we've spent 2 or 3 years helping him move his fees up, cleaning out some of this stuff, and life is so much better. And he would rather be managing a lot less properties with a lot more income than a lot more properties with difficult owners and earning less income. And it's taking him about 3 years to, you know, turn around. And it maybe your journey might take a year or so, I don't know. But, you know, I really encourage you to put into place what we've learned today.
Thank you, Darren. It's really a lot of good information in there. And it's just, I think as a still new property manager, 2 years in a business, I did everything you were saying. I did crap properties. I go 2 hours ahead. I had lunch with people that I didn't want to look at them, but learning a lesson, and this number makes so much sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Farah. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Darren. I appreciate it. We'll have you on here another couple months, and I appreciate you helping us out and doing this meeting and doing it at 2:30 in the morning your time.
No, that's great. That's fine. So thank you so much, everyone. And you'll be seeing Dennis next time. He's quite the trainer, and I'm sure that you'll get a lot out of it when it comes to growing your business.
Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Darren, and look forward to talking with everyone throughout the week this week. Thanks, guys.